She thought the stripper had finally arrived for her friend's bachelorette party. So she grabbed him, pushed him into a chair, and started unbuttoning his shirt while everyone filmed and laughed. There was just one problem. He wasn't the stripper. He was Luis Thomas, billionaire hotel owner, feared mafia boss, and the most dangerous man in Las Vegas. And by morning, every enemy he'd ever made knew exactly who she was. If you love mafia romance, dangerous obsession, and stories where one mistaken identity changes everything, subscribe now and smash that notification bell. What happens next will leave you breathless. You do not want to miss this twist-filled story. The VIP suite at the Onyx Grand Hotel was everything Joanne Crew had promised it would be. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Las Vegas Strip. A private bar stocked with top-shelf liquor. Plush velvet furniture in deep purple and gold. A sound system that made the bass vibrate through the floor. Sophie, the bride-to-be, wore a glittering white sash that read, "Getting Hitched," and a plastic tiara that kept slipping sideways. She was on her fourth Cosmopolitan and giggling uncontrollably. "This is amazing, Joanne," Sophie shrieked, throwing her arms around her best friend. "How did you afford this place?" Joanne grinned, adjusting Sophie's tiara. "I have connections." Which was partially true. She'd called in a favor from a client whose wedding she'd planned last year. The client knew someone who knew someone at the Onyx Grand. "Well, your connections are incredible." Gabby Torres, the third member of their trio, raised her champagne glass. To Joanne. Best event planner and best friend. They clinked glasses. The suite had cost Joanne more than she'd budgeted, but seeing Sophie this happy made it worth it. Sophie deserved this weekend. She'd been through hell with her fiancé's family drama, and this was her chance to forget everything and just celebrate. Okay, Sophie said, bouncing on the couch. "When does the entertainment arrive?" Joanne checked her phone. 10:47 p.m. "Should be any minute. I booked the best-reviewed agency in Vegas." "Did you request someone hot?" Gabby demanded. "Obviously." "Did you request someone who can dance?" "Gabby, I'm a professional event planner. Of course, A knock at the door interrupted her. All three women squealed. "Oh my God, he's here!" Sophie grabbed Joanne's arm. "You answer it. You're the one who booked him." Joanne laughed, already feeling the champagne buzz making her bolder than usual. She crossed to the door, checked her reflection in the mirrored wall. Black dress, red lipstick, hair in perfect curls, and yanked the door open. The man standing in the hallway was stunning, tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair styled back, sharp cheekbones, and eyes so dark they looked black in the hallway lighting. He wore an expensive charcoal suit, a crisp white shirt with the top 2 buttons undone, and a watch that probably cost more than Joanne's car. "Oh, you are perfect," Joanne said, grabbing his arm and pulling him into the suite. The man didn't resist, but his expression was confused. Joanne didn't notice. She was too busy shoving him toward the chair they'd positioned in the center of the room. "Ladies, he's here," she announced. Sophie and Gabby screamed with delight. "Sit! Sit!" Joanne pushed the man into the chair. He sat, still looking bewildered, but Joanne was already spinning to Sophie. "Start the music!" The opening beats of a dance remix pounded through the speakers. Joanne turned back to the man, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Amusement? Shock? Annoyance? "Okay, so here's the deal," Joanne said, emboldened by alcohol and excitement. "My best friend is getting married in 2 months, and this is her last weekend of freedom. So we need you to give us the show of a lifetime. Understand?" The man's lips twitched. I'm not sure you— No talking. Joanne wagged her finger at him. Strippers don't talk. They dance. Gabby was filming on her phone, laughing hysterically. Sophie had collapsed on the couch, crying with laughter. And Joanne, sweet, usually cautious Joanne, was standing in front of this gorgeous man, reaching for the buttons of his shirt. "Let's get you out of this jacket first," she said, sliding it off his broad shoulders. The man caught her wrists, gently but firmly. "I think," he said in a voice that was deep and controlled, and definitely not amused anymore, "there's been a mistake." "The only mistake," Joanne said, pulling her wrists free and reaching for his shirt buttons again, "is that you're still wearing too many clothes." She got 3 buttons undone before the door to the suite burst open. 4 men in black suits flooded in, followed by a 5th, a tall, muscular man with a scar running down his neck. "Mr. Thomas," the scarred man said urgently, "we've been looking for—" He stopped, taking in the scene. Oh shit. Joanne froze, her hands still on the man's half-unbuttoned shirt. "Mr. Thomas?" "Everyone out," the man in the chair said quietly. His voice didn't rise, didn't shout. But the 4 security guards immediately turned and exited the suite. Only the scarred man remained. "Cameron," the man said, standing slowly, "would you mind explaining to these ladies who I am?" Cameron's expression was somewhere between horrified and trying not to laugh. "This," Cameron said, addressing Joanne, Sophie, and Gabby, "is Luis Thomas, owner of the Onyx Grand Hotel, CEO of Thomas Enterprises, and, definitely not a stripper." The room went silent. The music still pounded, but no one moved. Joanne felt her entire body turn cold, then hot, then cold again. You're the owner?" she whispered. Luis Thomas buttoned his shirt back up, slowly, deliberately, and retrieved his jacket from where Joanne had tossed it on the floor. "I came up here," Luis said calmly, "because my head of security informed me that 3 women in the VIP suite were making excessive noise and potentially violating hotel policies. I thought I'd handle it personally." "Oh my God," Sophie breathed. "Instead," Luis continued, his dark eyes fixing on Joanne, "I was assaulted." I thought—" Joanne couldn't form words. Her brain had completely short-circuited. Luis studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to Cameron. "I want everything," Luis said quietly. "Name, background, employment, family, everything." Cameron nodded. "Yes, sir." Luis looked back at Joanne. "Enjoy the rest of your evening, ladies. The suite is complimentary. Room service is on the house. And Miss Crew," Joanne whispered. "Joanne Crew." "Miss Crew." Luis's expression was unreadable. "We'll speak again." Then he walked out. Cameron followed, but not before giving Joanne a look that clearly said, "You have no idea what you just did." The door closed. The music cut off abruptly as Gabby fumbled for her phone. For 10 seconds, no one spoke. Then Sophie started laughing. Hysterical, terrified laughter. "We are so kicked out," Gabby whispered. But Joanne couldn't speak, couldn't think, because she'd just molested the most powerful man in Las Vegas. And somehow, she didn't think this would end with just a complimentary suite. She spent the entire night pacing the suite, checking her phone, and replaying the moment she'd unbuttoned Luis Thomas's shirt over and over in her mind. "Maybe he'll just forget about it," Sophie offered weakly at 3 a.m. "Men like that don't forget," Gabby said, scrolling through Google results for Luis Thomas. Oh God, Joanne, look at this." She shoved her phone at Joanne. The search results were concerning. Luis Thomas, the the billionaire who bought Vegas. Thomas Enterprises under federal investigation for money laundering, charges dropped. Rumors swirl about Thomas family's mafia connections. 3 businessmen disappear after failed hostile takeover of Thomas properties. "We're dead," Sophie whispered. "We're actually dead." "He's not going to kill us," Joanne said, though her voice lacked conviction. "He's just powerful and connected and probably very, very angry." At 8:00 a.m. there was a knock at the door. All 3 women jumped. Joanne opened it to find a hotel staff member, impeccably dressed, holding a silver envelope. "Miss Joanne Crew?" "Yes?" "Mr. Thomas requests your presence in his private penthouse at 9:00 a.m. Please come alone." The staff member handed her the envelope and left before Joanne could respond. Inside the envelope was a key card and a handwritten note. "Suite 5000. Don't be late. LT." "You're not going," Gabby said immediately. "I have to. Joanne, this is insane. He could what? Have me arrested? Blacklist me professionally? He owns half of Vegas, Gabby. If I don't go, it'll be worse." Sophie grabbed Joanne's hands. "Then we're coming with you. The note says, 'Come alone.' I don't care." "Sophie." Joanne squeezed her friend's hands. "This is my mess. Let me fix it." At 8:57 a.m., Joanne stepped into the private elevator that accessed the penthouse floors. She'd changed into her most professional outfit, a navy blazer, white blouse, black pants. She'd fixed her makeup, pulled her hair into a neat bun, and rehearsed her apology 17 times. The elevator rose smoothly, silently. When the doors opened, Joanne stepped into a space that redefined luxury. The penthouse was massive. White marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the entire city. Modern furniture in blacks and grays. Original artwork on the walls. Pieces Joanne recognized from auction catalogs. And standing by the windows, hands in his pockets, was Luis Thomas. He'd changed into a black suit with a black shirt underneath. No tie. His hair was still perfectly styled. He looked like he'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. "Miss Crew," he said without turning around. "Punctual. I appreciate that." "Mr. Thomas," Joanne said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I want to apologize for last night. I made a terrible mistake. I thought you were the stripper." Luis turned to face her. "Yes, I gathered that." "I was drunk. That's not an excuse, but—" "Why me?" Joanne blinked. "I'm sorry?" "You opened the door, saw me, and immediately assumed I was the entertainment you'd ordered. Wait, Putsu. I don't know. You were standing there. You were dressed well, and I just assumed—" "No one," Luis interrupted quietly, "has ever treated me like I was ordinary, like I was just someone hired to perform." He moved closer, and Joanne had to fight the urge to step back. "Everyone who meets me knows who I am before I enter a room," Luis continued. "They know my reputation, my resources, my connections. They approach me with fear or greed or calculation." He stopped 3 feet away from her. "But you," he said, grabbed my arm, pulled me into your party, and started undressing me without a second thought. You treated me like I was nobody." Joanne swallowed hard. Is that why you asked me here? To humiliate me back?" "No," Luis smiled, a small, almost genuine expression. "I asked you here because I'm curious. Cameron Drake, my head of security, spent the night researching you." Joanne's stomach dropped. You investigated me? Of course. Luis walked to a tablet on the glass coffee table and picked it up. Joanne Marie Crew, age 27. Event planner for Prestige Events, Chicago. Graduated Northwestern University with honors. Your father died when you were 19, heart attack. Your mother remarried and moved to Arizona. You've been single for 18 months after a bad breakup. You work 60-hour weeks. You have $14,000 in student loan debt and approximately $3,000 in savings. Every word felt like a violation. You had no right, Joanne started. I have every right. Luis set down the tablet. The moment you touched me, you entered my world. And in my world, I need to know exactly who I'm dealing with. I'm nobody, Joanne said bitterly. You just said it yourself. I treated you like you were nobody because I am nobody. I'm just an event planner from Chicago trying to give her best friend a good bachelorette weekend. Luis studied her for a long moment. You're wrong, he said finally. You became somebody the moment you sat me down in that chair. What does that mean? Instead of answering, Luis pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. It was a photo, grainy, taken from a distance, of Joanne with her hands on Luis's shirt, smiling, clearly drunk and happy. Where did you get that? Joanne whispered. The Salvatores sent it to me at 4 a.m. Who are the Salvatores? Luis's expression darkened. Rivals, enemies, people who would very much like to see me weakened or destroyed. And now they think they've found a way to do it. Joanne shook her head. I don't understand. They think you're important to me. They think you're a weakness they can exploit. But I'm not. We don't even know each other. It doesn't matter. They saw you touching me. They saw you in my hotel. They've already started digging into your background. Fear spiked through Joanne's chest. What are you saying? Luis moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy. I'm saying, Miss Crew, that whether you like it or not, you're under my protection now. Because if the Salvatores think hurting you will hurt me, they won't hesitate. You can't just declare that I'm under your protection. I don't want what you want, Luis said softly, stopped mattering the moment someone sent me that photograph. Now, the only question is whether you trust me to keep you alive. Joanne stared at him. This man, this stranger she'd embarrassed 12 hours ago, was telling her she was in danger, that people she'd never heard of wanted to hurt her. It was insane. It couldn't be real. But the look in Luis's eyes told her it absolutely was. What do I have to do? She whispered. For now, go back to your suite. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. But don't leave the hotel. Don't post anything on social media. And when your friends ask what happened up here, tell them I accepted your apology and everything's fine. And after the weekend, Luis's jaw tightened. We'll discuss that when the time comes. He walked her to the elevator, pressed the button. As the doors opened, Joanne turned back. Why are you helping me? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Luis looked at her, really looked at her, and for just a moment, something shifted in his expression. Because, he said quietly, the Salvatores are wrong. You're not my weakness. The elevator doors started to close. You're about to become my priority. The rest of Saturday passed in surreal normalcy. Joanne, Sophie, and Gabby had brunch at the hotel's rooftop restaurant. They gambled at the casino. Joanne lost $40. They got massages at the spa. But Joanne couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time she turned around, she expected to see someone following her. Every time her phone buzzed, she expected Luis's name on the screen. Nothing happened. Maybe he'd been exaggerating. Maybe the Salvatores weren't actually interested in her. Maybe. At 9 p.m., Cameron Drake appeared at their suite door. "Miss Crew," he said formally, "Mr. Thomas requests your presence. Immediately." Gabby stepped in front of Joanne. "She's not going anywhere with you." Cameron didn't even blink. "This isn't a request." "Gabby, it's fine," Joanne said, grabbing her phone and purse. "I'll be back soon." "Joanne, I'll text you every 30 minutes. If you don't hear from me, call the police." Cameron led her to a private office on the executive floor, all dark wood and leather furniture. Luis stood behind a massive desk, his face illuminated by 3 computer monitors. Victor Reyes, a man Joanne recognized from her Googling, stood beside him. "Show her," Luis said without preamble. Victor clicked something on the computer. One of the monitors was filled with surveillance footage. Joanne watched herself leave the hotel that morning to grab coffee. A man in a baseball cap followed her out. When she stopped at a crosswalk, he stopped. When she entered Starbucks, he waited outside. "He followed you for 47 minutes, Luis said. "He photographed you 16 times. He never got closer than 20 feet. The next video showed Joanne at the pool. A different man, this one in sunglasses, sat 3 lounge chairs away, phone pointed in her direction. "That was this afternoon," Victor added. "He took 63 photos. Uploaded them to an encrypted server we traced back to Salvatore operations." Joanne felt sick. "They've been following me all day. They've been building a profile." Luis came around the desk. "They want to know your routines, your weaknesses, who you talk to, where you go. They're collecting data so that when they decide to move, they know exactly how to grab you." "This is insane," Joanne whispered. "I'm nobody. I'm not worth—" "You became worth it the moment they saw you with me." Luis's voice was hard. "And they'll use you to get to me, or they'll hurt you just to send a message. Either way, you're in danger." Joanne sat down heavily in one of the leather chairs. "What do I do?" "You leave Vegas. Tonight." "What?" "I'm sending you home under escort. Cameron and 3 other men will take you to the private airstrip. You'll fly back to Chicago. When you land, different security will take you to your apartment. You'll stay there until I neutralize the threat." Joanne shook her head. "I can't just abandon Sophie's bachelorette weekend. Your friend will understand. And I can't just hide in my apartment while you, what, start a war with these Salvatore people? That's exactly what you'll do." "No." Joanne stood. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be investigated or followed or thrown into some mafia drama. And I'm definitely not going to let you dictate my life because of one stupid mistake." Luis's eyes narrowed. "You don't have a choice." "Yes, I do. I choose to finish this weekend with my friends, fly home Sunday like planned, and return to my normal life. You deal with your enemies however you want, but leave me out of it." For a moment, Luis just stared at her. Then he laughed, a short, humorless sound. "You think you can just walk away from this? You think the Salvatores will forget about you because you choose not to be involved? I think I'm not your responsibility. You became my responsibility the moment you touched me," Luis said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "And I don't let what's mine be harmed. I'm not yours. Tell that to the men photographing you." They stared at each other. Finally, Victor cleared his throat. "Boss, the plane is ready. and we've had reports of increased Salvatore activity near the hotel. If we're moving her, we should do it now." Luis didn't look away from Joanne. "Go pack. You have 20 minutes. "I'm not 20 minutes, Miss Crew, or I'll have Cameron pack for you." Joanne wanted to argue, wanted to fight. But the surveillance footage kept playing on the monitors behind Luis. Strangers following her, photographing her, watching her. She was afraid. "Fine," she said, "but this doesn't mean I'm agreeing to anything long-term. We'll discuss long-term after you're safe." 45 minutes later, Joanne was in the back of a black SUV, flanked by Cameron Drake and another security guard. 2 more vehicles followed behind, a convoy designed to keep her protected. She'd said goodbye to Sophie and Gabby, made up some excuse about a family emergency. They'd believed her because they had no reason not to. Now she watched the lights of Las Vegas fade behind them as they headed toward the desert. "How long is the drive?" she asked. 30 minutes to the airstrip," Cameron replied. Joanne nodded and pulled out her phone to text Sophie one more time. The SUV jerked violently to the right. "What?" Cameron started. Then the back windshield exploded. Glass shattered inward. Joanne screamed. Cameron shoved her head down as bullets tore through the vehicle. "Go, go, go!" the driver shouted, slamming the accelerator. But they weren't fast enough. A truck, massive, industrial, came out of nowhere and slammed into the passenger side. The impact sent their SUV spinning, tires shrieking against asphalt. They hit the guardrail. Metal screamed. The world tilted. When the vehicle finally stopped, it was on its side. Joanne's head was ringing. Blood dripped from somewhere. Her forehead? She couldn't tell. "Cameron?" she gasped. No answer. She looked over. Cameron was slumped against the shattered window, unconscious or worse. The driver, she didn't even know his name, wasn't moving either. Panic flooded her system. She had to get out. Had to. The back door was ripped open. Hands grabbed her, rough, violent. "No! No!" Joanne kicked, clawed, screamed. Someone hit her across the face. Stars exploded in her vision. Then she was being dragged out of the wreckage, across gravel, and thrown into the back of a van. Doors slammed. The vehicle peeled away. And Joanne, bleeding and terrified, realized Luis had been right. She wasn't nobody anymore. She was leveraged. Joanne woke to the smell of rust and oil. Her head throbbed. Her wrists were bound behind her back, zip-tied to a metal chair. Her ankles were similarly restrained. She was in some kind of warehouse, empty, cavernous, lit by industrial lights hanging from chains. "She's awake!" Joanne's head snapped toward the voice. A man emerged from the shadows. Mid-40s, gray-streaked hair, expensive suit. He moved with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in his life. "Miss Crew," he said pleasantly, "I'm Dante Salvatore. Welcome." Joanne tried to speak, but her mouth was too dry. Dante gestured to someone off to the side. A bottle of water appeared. He held it to her lips, letting her drink. When she could speak again, Joanne said, "What do you want?" "Straight to business. I like that." Dante pulled up a chair and sat across from her. "I want Luis Thomas to suffer, and you, my dear, are going to help me accomplish that." "I don't know him. Last night was the first time we met." "Oh, I know the circumstances of your meeting." Dante smiled. "Quite amusing, actually. You thought he was a stripper. Very embarrassing for both of you." "Then you know I'm not important to him." "Ah, but that's where you're wrong." Dante leaned forward. "Luis Thomas has spent 15 years building an empire. He's untouchable. Legally, financially, politically. But everyone has a weakness, and his is that he's sentimental, protective of those he considers his. I'm not his. You became his when he ordered his entire security team to investigate you, when he summoned you to his penthouse, when he assigned Cameron Drake, his most trusted man, to personally escort you out of Vegas. Dante pulled out his phone and showed Joanne a photo. Louise standing in his penthouse, looking out at the city, holding a phone to his ear. His expression was furious. "This was taken 40 minutes ago," Dante said. "When he learned you'd been taken, he's already destroyed 2 of my businesses in retaliation. And we haven't even hurt you yet." Joanne's blood went cold. "What are you going to do to me?" "That depends on Luis." Dante stood. "If he cooperates, if he agrees to my terms, you'll be returned unharmed. If he doesn't—" Dante shrugged. "Well, I'm sure you can imagine." He walked toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Miss Crew? You should know something interesting about your father." Joanne's breath caught. "What about my father?" "Robert Crew, accountant. Died 19, almost 8 years ago of a heart attack. But before he died, he worked for 3 companies, all of them fronts for my family's money laundering operations." "That's a lie, is it?" Dante smiled. "Your father processed millions of dollars for us. He didn't know it, of course. He thought he was doing legitimate corporate accounting. But he was cleaning our money, making it untraceable. My father would never—" "Your father was a pawn, Miss Crew, just like you. The difference is he died before he became useful." Dante opened the door. "I'll check on you in a few hours. Try not to struggle. Those zip ties will cut into your skin." He left. Joanne sat there, shaking. Her father, a money launderer. It couldn't be true. But Dante had no reason to lie. He already had her. He'd already won. She closed her eyes and tried not to cry. That's when she heard footsteps. Different from Dante's. Heavier. A man entered the warehouse, tall, scarred, familiar. Cameron Drake. Relief flooded through Joanne. "Cameron! Oh, thank God, you have to help me. Luis sent you, right? You're here to—" Cameron smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Actually," Cameron said, "I'm the one who told them exactly where to ambush your convoy." And Joanne's world shattered for the second time in 24 hours. "You're working for them," Joanne whispered. Cameron pulled up a chair and sat where Dante had been. "I've been working for the Salvatores for 3 years, feeding them information, sabotaging Luis's operations, waiting for the perfect moment. Why? Money, power, the usual reasons." Cameron shrugged. "Luis Thomas thinks loyalty can't be bought. He's wrong. Everything can be bought. He trusted you." "He did. That's what made it so easy." Cameron leaned back. "Do you know what it's like, Miss Crew, to work for a man who has everything, who never questions his own authority? Luis Thomas needed to be humbled. And you're going to help me do it." "I won't. You won't have a choice." Cameron stood and checked his watch. "Dante's given Luis until midnight to meet his demands. That's 3 hours from now. My guess? Luis will try something stupid, like a rescue mission, and when he does, I'll be waiting." He walked out, leaving Joanne alone in the warehouse. 2 hours and 43 minutes later, the lights went out. Joanne gasped in the sudden darkness. Then, gunfire, shouts, running footsteps. More gunfire. Something exploded. Small, controlled, and the warehouse's side door blew inward. Men poured through. Luis's security team, led by someone Joanne didn't recognize. They moved with military precision, weapons raised. Clear left, clear right. Target acquired, civilian in the back. Footsteps ran toward her. Someone cut her zip ties. Hands, gentle this time, helped her stand. Miss Crew, I'm Kieran Wells. Luis sent me. We're getting you out. Cameron, Joanne started. We know. He's not here. He ran when we breached. More gunfire outside. Closer now. We need to move, Kieran said urgently. Can you walk? I think so. Good. Stay behind me. They ran through the warehouse, ducking behind crates and machinery as bullets ricocheted off metal. Joanne's entire body was shaking, but she forced herself to keep moving. They reached the blown-open door. Outside was chaos. SUVs, men shouting, the distant wail of sirens. And standing in the center of it all, holding a gun and covered in someone else's blood, was Luis Thomas. He saw her. For 1 second, everything else faded. Then he was moving, crossing the distance between them in seconds, pulling her against his chest. You're alive, he said roughly. Thank God you're alive. Luis, are you hurt? Did they? I'm okay. I'm okay. Police sirens were getting louder. We have to go, Kieran said. Now. Luis kept one arm around Joanne as they ran to the nearest SUV. She was shoved into the back, Luis sliding in beside her, and the vehicle peeled away from the scene before the police arrived. They drove for an hour, through desert, through darkness, until they reached a small house hidden in the Nevada wilderness. A safe house, Luis explained, as he helped Joanne inside. Off-grid. Salvatore doesn't know about it. The house was simple but comfortable. Luis led Joanne to a couch, grabbed a first aid kit, and began cleaning the cut on her forehead. You saved me, Joanne said quietly. I should have protected you better. I should have anticipated. Luis! Joanne caught his hand. You saved me. He looked at her, really looked at her, and something cracked in his carefully controlled expression. I thought I'd lost you, he said. When Cameron radioed that you'd been taken, He shook his head. I don't lose control, ever. But tonight, I lost it. Cameron betrayed you. I know. Kieran found the evidence. Bank transfers, encrypted communications. Cameron's been selling information for years. Why? Because I trusted the wrong person. Luis set down the first aid supplies. That stops now. No one gets close unless I'm certain. No one gets information unless it's necessary. And no one touches you again. The possessiveness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel safe. What happens now? Joanne asked. Now, Luis said. You rest, and I finish what the Salvatores started. 3 days passed in the safe house. 3 days of Luis coordinating operations from his laptop, making calls in languages Joanne didn't understand, and Kieran bringing updates about captured Salvatore operatives. 3 days of Joanne slowly processing everything that had happened. On the third night, a storm rolled in. Thunder shook the house. Rain hammered the roof. The power flickered, then died. Joanne was in the small kitchen making tea when Luis appeared in the doorway, flashlight in hand. Generator's out, he said. Kieran's checking it. Okay. They stood in the darkness, listening to the storm. Can I ask you something? Joanne said. Anything. What Dante said about my father, was it true? Luis was quiet for a long moment. Then, yes, I had my people verify it. Your father processed payments for 3 Salvatore front companies between 2013 and 2017. He didn't know they were illegal operations. Joanne nodded, throat tight. My father was a good man. I know. He would have quit if he'd known. I know that too. Luis stepped closer. You're not responsible for what he did unknowingly. And you're not responsible for the Salvatores' vendetta against me. Then why am I still here? Because, Luis hesitated. Because I can't let you go. Joanne looked up at him. What? I should send you back to Chicago. I should put you under FBI protection until this is over. I should let you return to your normal life. His voice dropped. But I don't want to. Luis, you treated me like I was ordinary, Joanne. You grabbed my arm and pulled me into your world without fear. No one does that. No one sees me as just a man. That's because I didn't know who you were. And now that you do, he moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body. Are you afraid of me? Joanne should have said yes, should have stepped back, should have protected herself. Instead, she said, no. Luis's hand came up to cup her face. You should be, probably. I'm dangerous, Joanne. I've done things that would horrify you. I've hurt people. I've made decisions that... I don't care. You should... Luis. Joanne caught his wrist. For 3 days, you've kept me safe. You've been kind to me. You've protected me from people I didn't even know existed. So no, I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of what happens when this is over and you send me away. Something shifted in Luis's expression, something raw and real. Then I won't send you away, he said, and he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was desperate and hungry and full of 3 days of unspoken tension. Joanne kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luis rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea, he said. I know. You deserve better than a man like me. Let me decide what I deserve. Luis pulled back, studying her face in the darkness. If you stay with me, your life will never be normal again. There will always be risks, always be enemies, always be danger. I understand. Do you? Because I'm not sure I could survive losing you again. Joanne grabbed his face with both hands. Then don't lose me. The next morning, Kieran brought news. Dante Salvatore's been arrested. FBI raided his operations early this morning. We fed Agent Elena Cross enough evidence to put him away for 20 years. Luis looked at Joanne. It's over. Cameron? Found dead in a warehouse in Henderson. Looks like Dante killed him for failing to eliminate you during the rescue. Joanne should have felt something. Relief, justice, horror. Instead, she just felt tired. Can I go home? She asked. Luis's expression shuddered. Yes, I'll arrange transport. I didn't mean Chicago. Joanne caught his hand. I meant here, with you. Can I stay? Luis stared at her. You want to stay? I want to see where this goes, between us. Joanne, I can't promise you safety. I don't want promises. I want you. For the first time since she'd met him, Luis Thomas smiled, a real, genuine smile. Then you have me, he said. 6 weeks later, Joanne stood on the rooftop of the Onyx Grand Hotel, looking out at the Las Vegas skyline. So much had changed. She'd quit her job in Chicago, moved to Vegas, started working with Luis on legitimate business operations, event planning for his hotels, charity galas, fundraisers. She'd learned about his world, not just the danger, but the complexity, the businesses he'd built, the people he employed, the responsibilities he carried. She'd learned about the man beneath the reputation, and she'd fallen in love with him. Behind her, the rooftop door opened. Luis crossed to where she stood, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How much my life has changed." "Regrets?" "Not one." She turned in his arms. "You?" "None." He kissed her forehead. "Though I do have something to ask you." "What?" Luis pulled back slightly and reached into his pocket. When his hand emerged, he was holding a ring. Joanne's breath caught. "I know this is fast," Luis said. "I know we've only been together a few months. I know you could do better than a man with my history." He took her hand. "But I also know that I've never felt this way about anyone. I know that when I thought I'd lost you, I couldn't breathe. And I know that every day I wake up with you is the best day of my life." Joanne was crying now, happy tears. "So, Joanne Crew," Luis said, dropping to one knee, "will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making up for that terrible first night? Will you choose this chaotic, dangerous, complicated life with me?" Joanne laughed through her tears. "Yes," she said. "Absolutely yes." Luis slid the ring onto her finger, a simple diamond, elegant and perfect. Then he stood and kissed her, while the city sparkled below them. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I love you too, even though I'm a mafia boss? Especially because you're a mafia boss who thought I was assaulting him." Luis laughed, a sound Joanne never got tired of hearing. They stood there on the rooftop, holding each other, while Vegas glittered and the future stretched out before them. Joanne had come to Vegas for a bachelorette party. She was leaving engaged to the most dangerous man in the city. And somehow, that was exactly where she was supposed to be. The wedding took place 6 months later, in a private ceremony at the safe house where they'd fallen in love. Sophie and Gabby were bridesmaids. Kieran was best man. Victor officiated. And when Father Michael Brennan, who'd known Joanne's parents, pronounced them husband and wife, Joanne kissed Luis like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between. Later, at the reception, Gabby pulled Joanne aside. "So," Gabby said, grinning, "was he better than the stripper would have been?" Joanne laughed. "Infinitely better. Even with all the kidnapping and mafia drama? Especially with all of that. You're insane. Probably." But as Joanne looked across the room at her husband, her dangerous, protective, complicated husband, she knew she wouldn't change a single thing. She'd made a mistake that night in Vegas. But it was the best mistake of her life. Did this story blow your mind? Did the twists, the danger, and that epic love story have you on the edge of your seat? Then smash that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. We have more mafia romance stories coming that will make your heart rate race. Share this with your romance-loving friends and drop a comment. Would you have stayed with Luis? Let's talk in the comment section.